So I've been with Disney 6 months, and during that time, it's like 6 months with 5 different films and 4 different production studios. So basically, we oversee Marvel, Pixar, DreamWorks, and Disney, and it's been pretty amazing. Talking about the social TV piece, so I come out of MTV, so working on everything from Dora through Jersey Shore to Colbert, and really that experience around social television and that nightly programming and weekly programming, depending on what kind of show, was pretty fascinating. Seeing the whole evolution over the past 1.5 years, 2 years around social TV. And when I came over to the brand at Disney, it was really, where are we here? Sorry. Oh, here we go. Brand. It was really an opportunity to kind of say, okay, how does this translate over to the film industry? Because all that daily broadcast engagement on TV, but you look over at film, you've got a movie. It's kind of like a friend of mine was saying today. Is there anything more difficult than going and saying, we're going to go ahead and take an unknown IP and raise awareness for it within 3 months, essentially open that film, and we've got to do that 12 times a year or more. It's ambitious. So if you kind of think through, the key question that's asking is, it's like, how do you build your brand? Ultimately, there's a lot of pieces to it, but when I think of it, it's essentially that you've got 3 pieces to the puzzle. There's a formula to it, or 3 tools, that you have access to. One of them, obviously, is organic followers. Disney's a great brand. It naturally attracts its fans to Twitter that want to engage in the conversation with us. You have paid followers, which is part of the mix. And then you essentially have incremental, which I look at it as, it's the social echo. You've got fans that you've, no matter how you've acquired or how they've come attached or following your brand, their activity and your conversation with them is going to just grow more and more echoes as more people are aware of your brand, and that's going to create more followers. When I think of, how is it, you kind of take a step back and you go, all right, how is the promoted accounts piece of the puzzle, right, combined with organic growth? It's pretty incredible. And it's something the team had already started when I got there. But beginning of the year, the Disney Pictures account, or Disney Studio, was at 25,000 followers. Pretty small for Disney, right? Big brand. And currently we're more than 1 million. And that's a pretty good recipe that I just spoke about. A good recipe on how we got there. And I think that if you kind of look at our goals internally, kind of what Rob was referencing, it's like we want to be one of the biggest, most followed brands on Twitter. And to kind of stick back for a moment, if you think of Starbucks, it's not personal, but it's kind of is. It's one of those things where I look at it like, okay, being followed is great. Starbucks is a great brand. Store in every corner. Dishing the caffeine. I've never had a cup of coffee in my life, and I think that as we kind of look at the path, it's really the question is, it's like, okay, we can be the most followed, but what's it mean? What's it mean to the brand? What's it mean to our products? What's it mean to our people? And that's really the question. What's the value of the follower that Rob put forth? If you kind of look at the pieces of the puzzle, you look at it and you say, okay, one of them owns media. Essentially, this is your audience. I kind of referenced it a little earlier, but it's your audience of fans that are engaging, that are talking about you, that you're in the conversation with, which is a huge element of it, and that are naturally out there discussing it. On top of that, you have the earned, which is a really important piece of the puzzle, because that is that, I don't know what it says, essentially it's essentially you've got a community of influence, right? You've got earned media, which is the extension of, I said it earlier as an echo, but it's the extension of those conversations. You've got retweets, you've got mentions, and there's the stats. Last year, or this year, I think I'm already in next year, but this year we have essentially 240,000 retweets off that one particular handle, and we've got 175,000 mentions. It doesn't include all of the other brands that we have across our network. We have quite a few Twitter accounts. So, but the big story is, if you're getting the jive, it's you combine these two, earned and owned, and you know what, it adds up in a big way. Because the outcome of it is, you basically look at it and you say, all right, so I've got 175 million owned, I've got 50 million earned, ultimately 225 million total impressions this year. And that's pretty powerful, especially when you take back and you think of it where we were. You think back to we were in the beginning of the year.
year, 25,000 followers, and you start looking at that story, and you can see the growth, you can see what's happening. So the big question on the table, right, is that, or the answer, is that, okay, so promoted accounts, owned and earned, has an ROI that grows over time. And I think that piece of it is what's really interesting. Because if you think of the more I message and the more that our fans interact with us, and it essentially is lowering our cost per engagement, which is kind of an important point, because that whole interaction is just improving the value, that whole formula of owned plus earned, and that story of lowering our cost per engagement, that combination really ends up to be something that is meaningful, because if you stretch it out beyond 2011, that stat's pretty incredible. No matter how we acquire, no matter what they come, organically, through paid, the incremental, 90% of them are loyal and stay on as followers. That's a big number. And it's not all just the nature of the product, right? It's Disney, it's how we engage with them, it's the conversation. We have teams around this, and it's it's authentic. I think that's a big piece, right? You guys all know this, you're marketers, you're on social. It's how you represent yourself, how you engage with those fans, how you be a part of that conversation. So then you kind of get to the more of the case study piece. You say, okay, well, we get it, right? There's value there, and your brand carries some of it. You also paid for on the promoted account front, and the incremental is solid. But okay, how did you do it, right? Like, what's the pieces to that? And I think that if you look at our year, I almost got that chair. If you look at our year, 2011, one of the big successes in our industry was The Lion King. It's a re-release, right? Lion King in 3D, all time, just a classic film. We put it back out in the market space, and it did phenomenal. We had, quotes from, I just chose Entertainment Weekly, CNN, and Perez Hilton to get kind of the gamut. And, my favorite Perez Hilton, he's like, Simba beat Brad because we took down Moneyball. It's like, how did something from, a children's story from, that's a re-release take out a new film in the market? And it's probably, one of the biggest questions I get. It's, okay, TJ, what is your social strategy around Twitter? Or what's your strategy for Pixar? Or how did you release The Lion King? And it's pretty constant, actually. Well, I'm going to let you know a little secret. It's Bieber. That's all I can say is Bieber. It's, seriously, he did that organically. It had nothing to do with us. He just put it out there. It was out for release. But Bieber is a powerful platform. Putting it beyond that, what do we really do? My social strategy is pretty straightforward. And I think it's really simple. Tactics, I think, depending on how you execute your strategies, where it gets a little tricky. But the first piece of it is what it says, right? I try and create influencers. I look at it, where's an influencer out there online? We create that community, and we start engaging them. We have them part of the conversation, and they feel really attached to us. Way back when I did, GeoCities, which was ages ago now, it was, we created this community leader program, and 5,000 leaders around the world that were engaging with us and telling us what was going on in the platform. Well, this is similar. We're out there identifying those interest groups, we're engaging with them, and the second piece, we're putting content and information in their hands for them to feel, a part of that conversation, and to then essentially ignite the conversation and push it forward and be our ambassadors out there around what they think about the film, the good, the bad, whatever. I want them talking about it. The last piece of the puzzle, obviously, is box office. Opening weekend is a big deal. It's about driving intent. And Disney Studios in general, as well as our other Marvel and Pixar, we're about franchises. So it doesn't end at the box office for us. It's really the long-term affinity that's in play. That's a huge point, because it's one of these where essentially if you just cut it off in the box office, you're losing all this added value that you've built up on this network. So from a case study perspective, if you look at The Help, which are a great campaign by our DreamWorks team. So The Help had, The Help released in, I think, August of 2011, and had a challenge. The nature of the film and some of the content and, just following up through the book, it had controversial subjects. And some people, it's a minority, but still it's a vocal minority, had, questions about the film. And our strategy really was, how are we going to go ahead and be a part of that conversation? And the answer was, we're really going to go and try and put the material, following the strategy I just spoke about, into our folks' hands. Let them see the film, do social screenings, be a part of that process, and have them be the advocates, have them be authentic voice of what they thought. Again, for better or worse, the film stands as it is, and we're out there trying to make them a part of that conversation. So the first piece for us was the taglines, right? So join the conversation, change begins with a whisper. It all very nicely kind of rides off of what the book and the film were about. The second piece is we heavily embrace social. It's a huge deal in our company. It's that we went out and we said, all right, we're going to go after mobile. We're going to do mobile social screenings, where that's where you get your tickets from. Because the best thing I can do during a screening is, prior to the release, right? During a screening is put people in seats that are connected, that have followers, that have a voice online. And so mobile tickets, showing up before handing out things with the hashtags on it, afterwards putting it in the end trail, in the end cut, essentially having the hashtag there as well. And then a brilliant move by the team was, in the lobby, they literally took what that is on the left, left, is a photo booth. Those photo booths you might see at a mall or a carnival where you go inside and it has a strip of 3 pictures. We put a photo booth outside in these theater lobbies, all about the help for people to go in and talk about what they just saw, and whether it was through Twitter, Facebook, anything on social, for them to go talk about it, just to put that conversation out into the space. The results of that, we leverage in other ways too.
What the hell? I'm listening. Did you get to that part yet that I was telling you about?
Yes, ma'am. You're going to done it now?
The help was so good. I loved it. Really great. In fact, very inspiring. That's encouraging.
Outstanding.
Go see it.
The Help, rated PG-13, now playing.
So we literally produced social spots that we put on air that were really the amalgamation of all of those, or the aggregation of all of those people coming into those booths, talking about the film, put it on air. And even by putting it on air, it showed people that we want to be in the conversation, that we want you to talk about it. And that actually then cycled back to then appearing on Twitter. And on all these people started saying, oh, there's a conversation, I want to be a part of it. And it really started boosting engagement overall, which is part of the whole piece of the puzzle, right? That essentially you've got the content, you've got the conversation, you've got social sharing, and you're supporting it. So we had a promoted tweet at the beginning of the campaign, and we had a promoted trend, We also had one right around the open. There we go. Big piece of that campaign was also, getting the influencers aware of the film. And it was pretty incredible, the folks that came out and then talked about it once they realized this conversation was happening. Ivanka Trump came out and talked about it. We had Katy Perry went ahead and did a tweet. And these are all organic. You had Jason Whitlock, a sports writer, come out and talk about it on Fox Sports. We even had one of the Cleveland Browns come out and just tweet that how much he loved the film. And then, of course, just something that trumps Bieber, perhaps, Oprah came out and sent a tweet as well. So these were obviously influential folks in the space that, based on the campaign and everything in play, felt compelled to go be a part of this. On top of that, as you went around once the film's reviews started coming out, we had a promoted trend up top there, the day the reviews all came out, but also it organically did it as well, which was pretty impressive that the conversation around the health was that engaging and that affected that many people. Again, shows you the promoted trend, and I think that the promoted trend actually did a great job of amplifying what we were already doing, and I think it added that value. So if we kind of circle back and say, how does it come together? It's essentially that you've got that formula I talked about in the beginning. The promoted trend had its play in that. A big piece that I really do focus on a lot, and this comes back to MTV. So when I was at that network, we did a lot of work trying to talk through and understand, okay, what is the impact of social on ratings, right? Nielsen ratings. Because in that company, it didn't take me long to figure out, if you're going to work with all the producers and all the writers and all the aspects of that company, you better speak their language. They speak ratings. To have them understand the value of social and digital, you've got to talk ratings. In the film industry, it's box office. And so when you look at a 10, which is the third piece of that strategy, right, we're creating influencers, we're then communicating and giving them content to go ignite conversations, and then ultimately we're driving intent in the third box. intent is a huge piece, and if you kind of look through, this is not conclusive, but there's something to it. If you just look